Hello everybody and welcome to another mini Disney Q&A. Today we're here at Hollywood Studios on MC Magic and I'm going to answer a few of your Disney questions. And today's first question comes from the Emerald Sword, who says, what do you think would happen if Walt Disney World was to be joined with Universal Studios? Which would take precedent over the other? Obviously this would never happen, but you have to ask what if. That's an interesting what if. I like doing some of these sort of company-based what ifs. So there are two ways you can look at it, right? You can look at it, what if Disney and Universal merged or was purchased by one another? Or what if Disney and Comcast, who owns NBC, who owns Universal, were to do it? Now, the reason you have to ask it in these two different ways is because you get two totally different outcomes. I was looking up some numbers, right? Comcast in 2013, their total assets had them valued at $158 billion. That is a lot of $1 billion. But for comparison, Disney in the same year, they measured up to about $81 billion, so almost half the size of Comcast. So clearly, if we're talking about Comcast and Disney, it would probably be Comcast buying Disney, and then that'd be a very scary thought as to what would happen, because Disney would no longer be in charge. They'd be owned by somebody else, and then who knows how we would see the parks change. I don't think we'd see a merging of the two parks in Central Florida. I think what you just see is the way that they're operated change, and that would actually scare me a little bit, because I imagine it would be in a very un-Disney-like fashion that the parks would be operated, and that would probably ruin a lot of the magic. Now, if you did it the other way around, where maybe Disney just wanted to buy, Universal Studios off of Comcast, well, then Disney's much larger than Universal Studios, and so it would be the other way around, where Disney is ownership. Here's the thing, I also don't think you'd see a major change, like a merging of the parks. What you just see is the way that they're run would be different, and I think because they would own it, you could see some cross-pollination there. All of a sudden now you'd see Marvel stuff popping up in Central Florida. You'd probably maybe see some Harry Potter stuff popping up over here, and then maybe you'd see some Disney stuff popping up in Universal Studios. Or just sort of mix. Do I think that's a good idea? Personally, I don't. I'm actually a big fan of these things staying separate. And the reason for that is by having competition, you are forced to be innovative, to be different, to really think about what the customer and the guest wants and to try and appeal to that. And you lose that once you have no competition. And that's exactly sort of what would happen. I mean, what would Disney's major competition be at that point? Six Flags, kind of, but they're not really in the same region. And Busch Gardens is kind of much, much smaller, I think, in scope and scale. So I don't think that would be enough to put Disney on edge enough, or Universal on edge enough to continue to think and be, innovative about it. So hopefully this never happens. I don't think it'll ever happen. It doesn't seem like the sort of thing that would. These companies are just so large that it's such a massive acquisition to consider. But it's a fun what if. Our next question comes from Jakey Jurin, who asks, I've not asked a question in a long while, so here it goes. I imagine if there was no Disneyland, how different do you think American and the worldwide theme parks would be? I know that the Matterhorn has been a huge inspiration for every tubular tracked coaster. What are your thoughts? That's an interesting thought experiment. This is the thought experiment episode. That one's tough to do, right? Because there are so many minor ways that, we, I think, don't realize Disney has influence, just sort of the way, whether it's just hotels work, they're minor touches. So I think on a macro level, the large scale, if there was never a Disneyland, would we have theme parks on this detail scale? I don't think so. I really don't think so. And the reason for that is not because I'm a huge Disney fan and want to think that they're the only ones capable. It's really that Walt Disney represented, I think, the very last of this sort of rare breed of business owners who are, one, business owners and run a business, who also have a very strong sense of creativity to the point where that isn't trumped by profits. I think we see it in other sectors. I think Steve Jobs was one of the few people who was very similar to that, but more in the tech sector, where, he was more concerned with the product being the right way, even if it meant it cost a little more, or it was an expensive way, or a less profitable way. And I don't think in the sort of entertainment industry you saw that as much. And that's very bizarre, right? Because pre-Disneyland, that just wasn't, you wouldn't tie Hollywood and theme parks together the way we would now with like Universal. So I don't think anybody would have stepped up to bat for that. And so I don't know. I think we would have had way more high tech. I think things like Six Flags would have just been the norm. They would have been the pinnacle of like theme park design. And even then, as fun as Six Flags is, I don't consider that to be very immersive. It's the hero rides, we plop them in, we'll throw a paint color scheme for a Superman tie-in or whatever, but it's not like really a Superman ride. And I think Disney and Universal sort of stand out about that. And I don't think Universal would have happened without Disney. And without Disney, I don't think anything else would have filled that void. So that's scary to think about, and I'm glad it actually happened. Lastly this week, or today, we have Max Ray, who asks, what are your thoughts on Legends of Frontierland at Disneyland? Should it be brought to Florida? Have a magical week. So if you don't know, and I've done minor research on this, but Legends of Frontierland is sort of like a meta game that you could play in Disney where you create characters. And I don't know the full specifics of the gameplay. Yeah, it doesn't sound to be like the card game here at the Magic Kingdom with the, standing up and holding up the cards. The Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom, now that I'm not blanking. But I think it's similar in the idea that it is a game that takes place over the larger area of the park. And I think that stuff's great, and I would love to see more of it. I don't know if I want to see that one specifically here. I'm a big fan of keeping things unique to Disneyland and unique to Disney World and Disney World. Just because in today's world, I think it's not for that much further of a stretch to go to one or the other. And so I'd like to see them use their experience. We're all frozen in time. To use their experience to make something new and different. But overall, I think it'd be really cool to see more of that sort of stuff. Anyway, I want to thank everybody who is here following me in the parks. I want to thank everybody who's submitted a question. If you have a question you want me to answer, all you have to do is leave it in the comments below. I try to get to as many as possible, if not in the videos, in the comments themselves. I want everybody to have a great week, whatever you're doing. Make the most of it because it makes it that much better. And I hope to see you all next time for the next Disney Mini Q&A. Bye, everybody.